Questions for reflection. In our first reading for the second Sunday of Easter, we hear the end of the second chapter of the Acts of the Apostles. This wonderful book, written by the apostle and gospel writer St. Luke, shows us the effects of the resurrection on the early believers. They began to live differently. In fact, before they were even called Christians, they were called the Way. Because of this, we hear of the elements of their new way of life. Christianity was not simply something they did on Sunday, the Lord's Day for those early believers. It changed their entire way of life. How about us? In his first letter to the whole church, the Apostle Peter, the head of the apostles, the first pope, continues this theme, reminding the early Christians and reminding each of us that they and we have all been given a new birth, a new beginning, and a living hope because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. As he explains, that does not mean there will not be struggles in this life. There will be. But what changes is us. If we truly give our lives to Jesus Christ and allow him to live his life through us. We are still in the Easter season. It began on Easter Sunday and continues for 50 days until we celebrate the Feast of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit was poured out on the church in the upper room. Remember, the outpouring of the Holy Spirit has been given to us as well, in baptism and in the sacrament of confirmation. The Apostle Paul reminded the Roman Christians that the same Spirit which raised Jesus from the dead is given to his followers. Do we believe this? Do we ask the Holy Spirit to work through us? The second Sunday of Easter is Divine Mercy Sunday in the Roman liturgical calendar. The Gospel for the liturgy recounts another one of the post-resurrection appearances of Jesus Christ to his disciples. The glorified Jesus appears to his disciples coming through locked doors and says, "Peace be with you." He breathes upon them the Holy Spirit, creating them anew. He also communicates his authority to forgive sins to the apostles, who will continue his redemptive mission through the church, which is his body. However, Thomas was not present for this encounter. The beloved disciple John records this exchange between the risen Lord and Thomas, which follows. Thomas, called Didymus, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples said to him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger into the nail marks, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Continues. Now a week later, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas was with them. Jesus came, although the doors were locked, and stood in their midst and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. And bring your hand and put it into my side, and do not be unbelieving, but believe." Thomas answered and said to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus bore his wounds, now glorified in his risen body. Thomas touched those wounds, and so can we. This encounter led to Thomas being called Doubting Thomas by some, and yet the tradition tells us this so-called Doubting Thomas died a martyr for his faith. He became a messenger of mercy to India, a missionary who shed his own blood for the Master whom he encountered on that day. His insistence on touching the holy wounds presented the disciple John another opportunity to explain for all of us the implications of the bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ. Not only was Jesus raised in a glorified body, but our redemption will only be complete when we are raised bodily. The whole person is to be redeemed. Do we believe this? We profess it in our creed every Sunday.